Friday edition, Mr. Irrelevant, presented by Door County Distillery with you. ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Wisconsin On Demand, or wherever you get your podcast. I'm Alex Strouf, hanging out with you from the Groover Law Offices, One Call That's All studio at the Avenue, beautiful downtown Milwaukee. Joshy DiMaggio with me here as well. Producer Tiny Hands doing a masterful job producing back at the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison. Hunter, I'm sorry.
Don't try and suck up to me. I heard what you were doing. I heard someone in our office got a FaceTime call. You tell me that you don't have enough time for us to meet before the show, and you're rubbing a balloon on your head. So, no, I don't want to hear it. I'm not happy with you today.
Okay. Well, I will say this. First off, it was not a FaceTime call. I may have interrupted a meeting while I was waiting for something to finish. But I forgot about static electricity. And I forgot about, that's what that's called, right? Like when you put a balloon, when you rub a balloon on your head and it makes your hair stack up. Josh, that's what that's called, right?
Yeah, but what do you mean you forgot about it?
I just haven't rubbed a balloon on my hair in
you have never pulled
a decade.
You haven't pulled anything out of the dryer? It's a little clingy.
I don't wear a lot of silk, so no. Isn't that strictly a thing with silk?
You've never experienced static clothing?
Josh, it's bold of you to think Strouf does his laundry.
That's a good point by him.
Yeah,
actually.
but even after you fold it, sometimes it'll be staticky. I've pulled things out of my closet that are hanging up that have a static charge still.
Well, I guess it was more so the hair point, I guess, is what I forgot about. Right, so I was rubbing a balloon on my head. So what Hunter's referring to is I called our friend Pablo Iglesias, who I believe is sitting in on the show today. Is Pablo there, Hunter?
He is.
Okay, now,
Snitch.
Yeah, first off, Pablo, you're a snitch. What the hell are we doing here? Second off, I just wanted, it seemed like he was down in the dumps, so I wanted to give him a little reason to smile. So I threw a balloon on my head and I made my hair stand up straight. Why can't we all just get along, Hunter?
I just don't like that you told me one thing and then I have to hear that you're dicking around doing other stuff. And
you big-timed him.
Yeah.
I big-timed him.
And now if something goes wrong on the show or I'm not ready for something, you'll throw me under the bus. So
hey,
that's exactly what you would do.
Do that. What are you talking about? I would never do anything like that. We're episode 180 of this program. I don't think I've once ever thrown you under the bus.
That's not true.
I don't think that's accurate. Here on episode 180, I would never do such a thing. So I prefer if we kept the slander to a minimum. Thank you very much. Now, I was doing something. It's not like I was doing nothing. But, yeah, I did get a little distracted by static electricity. So that one's on me. And it's funny it made its way back to you.
Do you have a diagnosis?
ADHD?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Are you surprised by that?
No, I just wanted to make sure, because there are a lot of people who go through life and don't figure it out till much later when they have to, perform adult tasks, and it becomes very difficult for them, and they realize, like, oh.
Yeah, I got my diagnosis, I think it was my 8th grade year.
You must have been a terror.
Yeah, so I was always a pretty quiet kid. This is not at all where I thought we were starting the show, by the way. But, yeah, we could dive into my medical history a little bit. So I was always a pretty quiet kid, right? Like elementary school. And then about 4th grade, I was in the same class as my best friend, Adam. I was actually at the Bucks game with him last night. And we were in the same class, and we started goofing off a lot. And the teacher said, Alex, what happened to you? Right? All your teachers from past years said you were great. You were quiet. You're a hard worker. Now you're getting like C's and you're too busy chit-chatting all the time. I got caught on my cell phone. I had a flip phone in 4th grade. I got caught texting once. And then I got to middle school and my 7th grade language arts teacher, her name was Mrs. Miller, right? And Mrs. Miller got very angry at me because I did this thing where I would just start walking around the classroom. We'd be in the middle of reading, right? Popcorn. So Joshy's reading. I would just get up and start walking. I'm taking a stroll in the middle of the classroom. And so then she implemented, and this is what set my father off. She implemented a rule where after we would take a quiz or we would do an assignment in class, she would allow me 5 minutes to go walk the hallways. And when this got back to my dad, he goes, dude, like, no, you're not doing that anymore. Right? And so Mrs. Miller at student teacher conference said, hey, have you ever had Alex checked for ADHD? It seems like he gets distracted quite easily. And they said, no. And so ultimately I went to somewhere where they diagnose that. I guess I don't even know. A psychologist, I guess it would be. Would that be right?
I've never been diagnosed, but I would think that's where you start.
Yeah. So I think I was at a psychologist in Green Bay, and they sat me down. They ran me through multiple quizzes, and I've never admitted this out loud. I think I hammed it up a little bit. So like I would make my eyes go around, right?
Well, you wanted it.
Yeah, I think I wanted to, but regardless, the takeaway from this visit with the psychologist was, I think it was a she. She said, Alex is very intelligent, but he can't apply himself. He's a smart dude, but he can't apply himself. And so long story short is, I think I hammed it up a little bit. And so long story short, they prescribed me. It wasn't Adderall, but it was an Adderall. Same idea,
Vyvanse,
right? I think it was Vyvanse I started on, and they started me on like the highest dosage.
Because you passed the test with flying colors.
Yeah, that they would give I was like 14, right? So they started me, I think it was like 50 milligrams or something. It was an insane amount. I became a zombie.
Yeah.
And so then they cranked it down a little bit, and I did it throughout high school. I would take a pill every day. And then I got to college, and I ultimately ended up quitting it. Because I couldn't really eat well. It kind of killed my appetite. It kind of killed my fun spark, Imagine if this was not the version of Strouf you've come to know and I think love, Joshy.
What if we got back onto a 10 milligram, just a little trickle, a little something to avoid you walking into meetings rubbing a balloon on your head. Because here's the thing.
It wasn't a meeting, though. It wasn't formal.
Regardless. I have never stood up, walked into someone else's phone call and rubbed a balloon on my head and said, hey, remember static electricity. That's not a thing that would ever cross my mind.
It wasn't a thing that would ever cross my mind either until I blew up a very large balloon. Actually, here's how this started.
Right,
Hold on, let's go back to the origin of the balloon for a second. Let's go back to the origin of the balloon. So we just have random balloons sitting upstairs in the office. We had a Halloween party a few weeks ago, and people had balloons, but nobody picked up their balloons. So near my desk where I sit, there are a lot of balloons. And the other day after work, I was fiddling around because, I just got done doing KBN, kind of a long shift, ready to unplug. I'm a very good active listener when I'm producing a program. I think I'm pretty good at my job for the most part. And I got up there and I was like, wow, I wonder how big of a balloon I can blow up without it popping. So it was a black balloon. I blew this. It's massive. It is a massive balloon. Pablo, can we give the mic to Pablo quick? Pablo, this was a large balloon I was playing with, correct?
It's a pretty decently sized balloon for sure. I will say I'm sorry for snitching. Don't want to do that to you, Stroufy.
Okay. No, it's all right.
I was entertained, and it did put a smile on my face. So I'm backing you up on this one. I'm backing you up.
All right, so
saying that you did give me some joy, but it was a pretty solid balloon, and I was entertained, and it was very refreshing to see.
Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Pablo. That's all my goal was. So anyway, this large balloon. Joshy, you used to produce a show called Scalzo and Brust. Brust, obviously, of Kyle Brust and Ben Brust, former Wisconsin Badger. The other half of that pairing is Greg Scalzo, who is now our market manager and a vice president of Good Karma Brands. He is our big boss here in Milwaukee. You want to know what I did with that balloon? That giant balloon once I blew it up?
Put it in his office?
Sure did. I put it right on his seat. I tried to whoopee cushion him with this giant-ass balloon. And then today, it was just in the hallway. And I was like, hey, Greg, why'd you move this balloon out of your office? He goes, was that you? I go, it was. He goes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the story.
We're now at the second layer of this where I would never by myself go, hey, I wonder how big I can blow up this balloon.
Why not?
I could do literally anything else on Earth.
Okay.
And you realize you're doing this... You're doing this for no one but yourself, which makes it even more odd.
Well, I don't think it's odd.
If it was being performative, at least that would be like, oh, you're trying to entertain, much like you were with Pablo. That you can sort of justify. But you get done with your day of work and you go, you know what? Instead of wrapping up what I'm doing here today and going home, I'm going to blow up this balloon as large as humanly possible and then leave it for someone else. That's not a thing that would ever cross my mind.
Okay, so that's a fair point. But that's what makes me unique and special. Right?
Yeah, we figured out. We know why you're unique and special.
I see on the YouTube chat at ESPN Milwaukee has chimed in. Please do not take medical advice from Alex Strouf, which is good advice.
Yes.
Do not take medical advice from me. So there you go. That's the story of how we got here. So 11 minutes into the show, there is my diagnosis with ADHD and why Hunter is upset with me. Hunter, do you feel any better 11 minutes later?
Honestly, I'm more annoyed.
You've heard from me.
I'm even more annoyed. This has made everything way worse.
There is a portion of this where you have to give some sympathy because there's a diagnosis here to match along with the behavior. And a lot of people struggle hard with it, so I don't want to make like I'm making fun of it. But that's not something someone your age does at this point of their life.
Yeah, and
so hold on, real quick. Am I unprofessional?
Yes, extremely.
Can we get Maddie Hayes' mic on, Joshy? I know we can't turn it on yet, but just let me know when we can, because I want to go to social media extraordinaire Maddie Hayes, who joined us last Friday. Maddie, do you think I'm unprofessional? You're good to go.
I think you're better than me.
Do you think you are more unprofessional than me?
I think we passed the baton to each other.
Okay, that's fair.
But I would both say that we're hardworking. We're very hardworking.
Joshy, am I hardworking?
Yes.
Okay.
I would never question that from either of you two. I do think there are times, though, where you're not working.
Like playing with a balloon and static electricity. Okay, I want to pass this to Hunter now. Hunter, would you define me as unprofessional?
Yes, absolutely. But again, you do work hard when you are actually working. It's just, again, you get real distracted. From 11:30 to about 11:42. We typically meet at 11:30 for a 12:30 show, right? So 11:30, I texted Hunter. I said, "Hey, I'm working on something." From 11:30 to about 11:42, I was grinding, and then I was done grinding, and I rediscovered static electricity.
There's also something there too. You worked for 12 whole minutes, and we're like, "Phew."
Well, no. I was working also prior to 11:30, but I'm saying at the overlap into the show meeting, I was working 12 extra minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what I was working on was ESPN Wisconsin's Coaches Week, which you can now find all 4 interviews: Shaka Smart, Bart Lundy, Doug Gottlieb, which we will play later today in this episode, and Greg Gard in the Mr. Irrelevant podcast feed and on Wisconsin On Demand, in full, unedited conversations with all 4 Division I men's basketball coaches who I talked to this week. I mentioned it. We will play the Doug Gottlieb interview for you coming up in about 15 or so minutes. Before the show, I said to Josh, "Hey, you're going to find a way to derail this."
Nailed it.
Mission accomplished. Well done by Joshy. All right.
Now I also kind of, though, feel like I'm taking advantage of someone.
You feel like you're taking advantage of me?
Yeah, because after what we learned about your 7th grade diagnosis, distracting you it's shooting fish in a barrel.
I've never heard that phrase.
What?
Come on.
What does that mean?
Come on.
Who shoots fish in a barrel?
You can't piece it together?
I mean, the understanding I have from context clues is it's easy.
Yes, because if you put fish into a barrel, you would be able. They're just inside of a barrel.
Would you shoot them with a gun? Is that what you're saying?
What else are you shooting them
fish? Why are you
I guess
shooting
you could
fish?
use a bow and arrow.
But can't you just let them? I mean, if you're going to kill a fish, you don't put a bullet in their brain.
Some people do. Carp fishing. They use shotguns.
All right,
You've never heard shooting fish in a barrel.
I want to talk about the Green Bay Packers.
That might be the most common saying on earth.
Oh, that's not true, and you know it.
That one, you see it everywhere.
The Green Bay Packers entering their bye week. And I've got a little bit of speaking of diagnosis, I've got a diagnosis of the bye week blues. I'm A, sad we will not see the Green Bay Packers play this weekend. I am B, sad because I have to sit with this loss to the Detroit Lions for another week. I am C, sad because the Packers did not get better at the trade deadline. In fact, you could probably make the argument they got a little bit worse on paper by sending Preston Smith to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'm just a little bye week bluesy right now. And I'm not feeling super great about where the Packers stand. Now, don't get me wrong. They're still a playoff team. I think they're still a good team. But mathematically, they're closer to missing the playoffs than they are to winning the NFC North, which is something I did not realize until I looked at the standings in the NFL yesterday. So I've got a little bit of the bye week blues. And I think this is curable. But I used it as a relationship term yesterday on Kyle Brust and Nortman, and I want to see how Joshy grades this analogy, because analogies are by no means my strong suit. But here's why I'm feeling extra bluesy here entering the bye week. So when you're in a relationship and the relationship ends, let's view that as last Sunday for the Packers, right? They lose to the Detroit Lions. Let's view that as the breakup period. in order to get over a breakup, typically you have a rebound, right? You would whatever that is, right? Start going on dates again. Maybe it's a one night stand, whatever your normal behavior is in terms of a rebound, you do that. And I think I'm feeling extra bluesy because I'm not going to get my rebound this weekend. The Packers aren't going to be able to win a football game and make me feel a little bit better about where they're at 6-3 and become 7-3 because they're on a bye week. I have to wait a full another week. So I have to cope with said breakup longer than I would like to, rather than getting my rebound. How'd I do?
I think you did pretty well there. Bye weeks are the worst.
Bye weeks are the worst. Now, I get it, and it comes at a good time for the Packers, Joshy, because obviously they're a little beat up, right? Jordan Love's a little hobbled. Jair Alexander didn't play. Evan Williams didn't play last week. So we've got a little bit of a good timing on the bye here, so the Packers can get a little bit healthier. But I'm just sad that I won't be able to get the rebound this weekend for the Green Bay Packers. And I've got to sit with the idea that the Packers, I don't want to say they got manhandled, but they got beat pretty bad last week to the Detroit Lions, despite what the scoreboard indicated. I think the final was 24-14. I felt like that was a worse loss than the score indicated, right? I just never really felt like the Packers were in that game. And the Detroit Lions are the best team in the NFC, both record-wise and just overall, right? They are the best team. They are the cream of the crop in the NFC. And last week showed me that maybe the Packers aren't quite at that level. Of course, that can change. Of course, this team can come out of the bye and maybe look like the team they did in the second half of last season, which was one of the best in the NFL. But as it stands on November 8th, I'm feeling a little down in the dumps about the Green Bay Packers. So I do want to go around position by position and just say, hey, is this group passing or failing our expectations from the preseason? Because the difference between last year for the Packers and this year for the Packers is, of course, expectations, right? It boils down to expectations. Last year, there really weren't any, right? You were trying to figure out if Jordan Love was the guy, if he really was your quarterback of the future. And they exceeded expectations. They win a playoff game. They get in as a 7th seed. They go on the road and win. They have the NFC champions eventually, the San Francisco 49ers, on the ropes in the divisional round, end up losing that game. But you go, whoa, this is coming together way faster than I expected. You add Xavier McKinney. You add Josh Jacobs in the offseason. All of a sudden, this Packers team, who caught lightning in a bottle, won a playoff game a year ago, has real expectations. You've got to do that again, and some is the expectation entering this season. I'm not saying winning a Super Bowl or getting to the Super Bowl was necessarily the expectation, but the NFC Championship game would certainly be a nice step in the right direction for this young Packers team. And as it stands right now, I don't know if they're NFC Championship good. They're playoff good. Are they good enough to win a playoff game? That I don't know, right? Think about the 3 losses on the Packers schedule. The Philadelphia Eagles, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Detroit Lions. Those are all 3 teams in the NFC that currently rank ahead of the Packers in the playoff standings. Philadelphia and Minnesota are the 2 wild cards ahead of the Green Bay Packers, and of course hold on to a tiebreaker, and Detroit is the number 1 seed in the NFC. So the 3 losses you've taken, while they were opportunities for signature wins, you didn't get the job done. And that worries me as we approach the second half of the season that includes 2 more games, both on the road, against teams you've already lost to in Minnesota and Detroit. You have San Francisco on the schedule in the second half. You also have Seattle on the schedule in the second half of the season. All teams that look like they could be playoff teams. And the 49ers, of course, right now, as it stands, are on the outside looking in, but Christian McCaffrey's returning. They're going to get their vibe back. They're going to get their juju back. And they're still going to be one of the best teams in the NFC, just maybe not a 1 seed this year in the NFC playoffs for the San Francisco 49ers. So I want to go position group by position group and just say pass or fail. Similarly to me and my ADHD diagnosis. Do you have ADHD or do you not? Do you pass or do you fail this point in the season? Let's start with the quarterback position, which of course is led by Jordan Love. Love has thrown the most interceptions in the NFL and has only played about 5.5 games, 6.5 games at this point. Obviously missing the entirety of the Indianapolis and Tennessee games, missing the second half of the Jacksonville game. Still leads the league in interceptions. Malik Willis has been really good when he's been thrown into those moments. The second half against against Jacksonville, and of course those entire games against the other 2 AFC South teams that the Packers beat up on earlier in the season, Indy and Tennessee. This group is passing, but you still need improvement from Jordan Love. You need to cut down on the mistakes. You need to cut down on the self-inflicted wounds, which includes the interceptions. But all in all, the quarterback play is passing. When it comes to the running back, it's the same thing, and maybe has been one of the brightest or brighter spots of this Packers offense in 2024. Josh Jacobs, huge addition. Emmanuel Wilson has done some nice things. Chris Brooks, despite the drop touchdown last week, has done some nice things. And you will likely see Marshawn Lloyd return to the fold, or really make his debut in the fold in the second half of the season. Receivers are passing, but again, when it comes to self-inflicted wounds, dropped passes, they lead the league. Dontavian Wicks, more drop passes than anybody else in the NFL as it stands right now. Got to cut down on those. Pretty much everything in the offense is passing, but it needs to be a step better. The only real failures on this Packers team as it stands right now are on the defensive line, right? And you downgraded this year, or this week rather, by trading Preston Smith. I'm excited about what some of the young pieces can do, but I'm not sold that they're going to be able to turn around entirely the lack of production from this defensive line crew, right? The Brenton Cox Jr.'s and Aaron Mosby's of the world. They haven't played a lot of football in their careers. So I just don't, as it stands right now, have the expectation that this group all of a sudden is going to fix its shortcomings in the first half of the NFL season. The rest of the groups are passing, but need to be better defensively, right? You need more production out of your defensive backs. Obviously, you need Jair Alexander back in the mix, but you didn't make an addition at that position, which it feels like you kind of need, right? Eric Stokes was effectively benched this year, and we haven't seen much from him. Carrington Valentine isn't quite repeating what he was able to do his rookie season. Keyshawn Nixon's been good, but I don't know how good you feel about that. As your number 2 corner. But he's been fine since he's been moved outside from the slot position. But all in all, everybody just needs to be a bit better at 6-3. If this team wants to make the run, we expected them to at the beginning of the season, Hunter.
When it comes to this D-line, and given the lack of production that they've had and being a group that's failing, looking ahead, it's the bye week, so we can kind of look down even further down the road this week compared to other weeks.
Yep.
How are you feeling about the fact that this team's either going to need to invest even more money somehow with their salary cap into free agents to get production from the D-line, or they're going to have to use yet another high draft pick to try and get production from that position group? And then, in theory, you could have gotten maybe another really good first-round wide receiver or a corner, something that could help this team go over the top, while you have to still... You're like, well, we actually have to fix this really bad position group we have instead of being able to just bolster the rest of this team.
Yeah, it was a text we got on KBN yesterday, Kyle Wallace and I, with Ben and Brad out. And they I forget who exactly said it, but something along the lines of, this is a team for 30 years that has built a roster to be a playoff team and not a Super Bowl team, right? It hasn't gone all the way in. And you had opportunities to many years when Aaron Rodgers was playing quarterback for you. It feels again like, obviously you're waiting for the evolution. This is a draft and develop franchise. It's just how they've always done it. They don't make splashes at the trade deadline. They typically don't make splashes in free agency. 2019 and 2024 are the 2 big years that Goody has gone in and made some really big signings. Right back in 2019, it was the safety Adrian Amos, and it was the Smith brothers, Adarius and Preston. This past year, of course, Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs, as I mentioned. Those feel like big moves and big swings, and certainly both of those guys have provided big booms and big swings here in 2024. So what do you do? I think you probably take another pick on a D lineman when the draft comes to Green Bay in next year. I just don't see Brian Gutekunst trying to make another big splash in free agency for the second consecutive year. It just doesn't feel like that's his brand here in, year 8 or year 7 as the general manager of the Green Bay Packers?
The Packers at this point have either the most expensive or one of the 3 most expensive defenses in all of the league. I don't see the investment coming through free agency unless you're able to move off of one of those guys that are costing a bunch of money right now, which is basically Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, and Jair plus Xavier McKinney.
Plus Xavier, right. But to that point, Josh, it feels like the fundamental error then lies within your contract extensions, right? You paid the guys that probably didn't deserve to be paid as much as they did. I think Kenny is one, Kenny and Jair don't feel that way. Xavier doesn't really feel that way here early in his Packers tenure. Rashawn Gary certainly does. The big extension he signed last November.
Yeah, that's the albatross, and that's the one that's hard to make sense of. I thought it was strange at the time when they made the investment.
Coming off of an ACL sprain.
But I didn't expect it to be as bad as it has been thus far.
Yeah.
In terms of actual production on the field. I think the way they get out of it is more investment into
the draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And when you look at Rashawn, I wonder if you gave him truth serum, right? If he has a moment of reflection and a moment of self-realization like Preston Smith did with the Pittsburgh media the other day, which was, I requested a trade because that system didn't work for me.
I think that's valid, and Chewy brought up the same thing. The problem is Rashawn Gary was a natural 4-3 defensive end.
Yeah.
So it's sort of hard for him to argue that. I mean, the guy just doesn't look quick or particularly strong.
No, and
at this point.
And it dates back to his days at Michigan, right? Like, he was viewed as one of the top prospects in the country coming out of high school, and he's just never really been able to put it all together. The Packers viewed him as a project when they drafted him in the first round. What year was that, 19, when they drafted him in the first round? I think it was 2019. They drafted him and Savage. He just hasn't really been able to put it together since then. Ron chimes in. He didn't do anything at Michigan. That's my point, right? Like, he's always had the physical tools. He's just never been able to put it all together, and that still remains the case here in 2024.
Yeah, the Packers are going to continue to keep drafting those guys. That philosophy's not going to change. They're going to take the raw athleticism, guys with size, speed, and explosion, and hopefully hit on them.
And, I was just looking at potential free agents just in case any fans are like thinking that could be a route that they go here. It's just not going to happen, given that you've got Khalil Mack, Hassan Reddick, Matthew Judon, DeMarcus Lawrence. They're all over 30. Goody's shown he doesn't want anybody over 30. And then the guys that are younger, Josh Sweat, Chase Young, Charles Omenihu, you're not going to be able to afford them. So as I look at this now, they have to figure this out through the draft because it's the only real solution that they have.
Yeah, you see one of the big reasons they traded Preston. He's over that 30 years old mark. And I think that's a hypothetical line, right? I don't think Goody is absolutely terrified of signing veteran players, but he just hasn't in this new regime. Pang Yang chimes in on the ESPN Milwaukee YouTube chat. Would like Yannick Ngakoue. Yannick Ngakoue waived by the Ravens earlier this week. He is a free agent. He's bounced around the league the last couple of years, including spending some time in the NFC North. Did Yannick Ngakoue, right? He spent some time with Minnesota in 2020. I think he was traded from his first stint from the Ravens to the Vikings. And it's a name. And would it be great to bring in some more talent, some more depth that's proven in the league, right? Because Brenton Cox Jr., Aaron Mosby, certainly not proven talent. Lucas Van Ness has maybe been the biggest disappointment on the Packers roster here in 2024. I just don't have a ton of faith in these guys, which is disappointing. So we will see. But that is the one group that needs a massive upgrade in the second half of the season. Well, I think they can get it, but I just don't know that they're going to all of a sudden evolve into a top 5 group in the league. It's just not realistic to me. So there are my bye week blues. I'm done being pessimistic. I'm going to tell you about my friends at Door County Distillery, locally produced, handcrafted, and award-winning spirits made locally in beautiful Door County, whether it's their delicious array of whiskeys, their 27-time gold medal award-winning single malt whiskey, their delicious bourbon, or their great rye, or maybe whiskey's not your thing. They've got gin, they've got vodkas, they've got rums, they've got brandies, and many of them, infused with Door County cherries. So good. DoorCountyDistillery.com is the website to find the retailer nearest you, as well as a huge list of unique cocktail recipes. That is DoorCountyDistillery.com. We'll step aside for 60 seconds. When we return, I have a question for Hunter and Joshy. We'll make some underdog picks, and we will talk to new Green Bay head coach Doug Gottlieb. Both still ahead. It's Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf. Fall is here, and once again it has me asking the question, where in the world is Door County Distillery today? It brings me to the great Liberty Station off the Beltline in Madison. Let's go into Liberty Station. Always a good time to enjoy a Door County Distillery Old Fashioned made with the delicious cherry brandy, which of course is infused with famous cherries from Door County. Whether you're making an old fashioned, just splashing in some lemon or lime juice, or just mixing it with a soda, nothing better than the cherry brandy from Door County Distillery. You can enjoy it everywhere, whether it's a tailgate, a holiday gathering, or you're sitting out at the patio right here at Liberty Station. Do it right with the Door County Distillery Cherry Brandy. Check out their website with a huge list of unique cocktail recipes at DoorCountyDistillery.com. That's DoorCountyDistillery.com. Yeah, DoorCountyDistillery.com is the website. All right, quick question for Joshy and Hunter before we get to our underdog picks for the weekend in the NFL. Do people not talk at sporting events? Like,
what the hell does that
What do you mean?
Okay, so you're sitting in the stands with somebody you go to the game with. Do you not talk to them?
Of course I talk to them.
Okay, so I felt really awkward last night. I was at the Bucks game. They played the Utah Jazz. They got a win. 2-6 now. Woohoo. I went with my buddy Adam, as I mentioned earlier. And we're catching up, right? I haven't seen each other in a couple weeks. Talking politics, talking sports, talking everything in between, right? Nobody around us has said a word the whole game. I don't think we were that entertaining to the point where everybody in the arena was eavesdropping on us. Right? Like, I don't think that. It was really uncomfortable. The dude directly to my right said nothing to nobody the entire game, all 4 quarters. Said nothing, not a peep. And he was with people. He high-fived somebody at some point. He said nothing. Nothing. The family to Adam's left didn't say a word to anybody in their family the entire game. People behind us not talking. People in front of us not talking. They didn't look irritated that we were having a conversation, but nobody was talking. And it made me really uncomfortable. And I was curious if that's normal. And I don't think it is, but I felt like I was living in a simulation last night. It was really strange.
My first thought was that you just ended up in a section with a bunch of people that were trying to raw dog the game. But the
raw
number
dog
of people.
The game.
You haven't seen that where you you go on a flight and you're like, I'm gonna raw dog the flight. You do no music, no movies, nothing. You just sit there and you stare in front of you for the entire 4-hour flight. And now people have started doing it at games. Like, you don't get up, you don't do anything, you just stare at the game the entire time. But if it's the whole section, that's weird. You were just in a weird section.
Okay, maybe that's the case. Joshy?
I think people who talk a lot are probably pretty annoying in settings like that.
I may have been annoying last night. I won't dispute that.
Yeah, so I think there was you might have just been near some quieter people. Because, if my father and I go to a game, we might go an hour without speaking to each other. That's just kind of how we interact.
Was that a little trauma there?
We're both generally quiet people.
You're not a quiet person.
I spend a lot less time talking than you do.
Well, that's not a high bar, Joshy.
I spend a lot of time, secluded by myself, just hanging out.
You love your own thoughts.
Yes.
Do you think you're the smartest person in the world?
Not even close.
Top 100?
Not even close.
Top 1,000?
Not close.
10,000?
Probably not.
20,000?
I think you'd have to go probably towards the top million.
How many people are in the world? 8 billion?
There's a lot.
Okay, but a lot of them are babies. You're smarter than all of them.
Yes, but there's people who are geniuses, mathematicians.
I think you think you're a genius, then.
I don't. Okay. Again, yourself is speaking here louder than I am.
I don't think I'm a genius.
No, your diagnosis of me.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Who's ready to make some underdog picks? Josh, you ready?
I'm always ready.
All right, let's dive into it. Underdog app, UnderdogFantasy.com. Use promo code GoodKarma at sign up. I was a Torian Prince rebound away from $190 last night. I don't want to talk about it. But damn, is Underdog fun. Underdog, all you do, you play the pick'em game. Pick higher or lower on player stats. You can pick anywhere between 2 players and 8 players. You can win up to 1,000 times your money. And when you sign up using promo code GoodKarma, you get a 50% deposit match on your initial deposit. You put in $10, you get an additional $5. You put in $100, you get an additional $50. By using promo code GoodKarma at sign up, also get a free pick, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money. It's your call. Cash in on Underdog. Use promo code GoodKarma at sign up, and use promo code GoodKarma to ride with me, Joshy, and Hunter this weekend. I want to start with Kansas City, right? No Packers this weekend. So let's start with the Kansas City-Denver game because that game caught my attention. I think I like Mahomes higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns, especially seeing what he did on Monday night with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins to that Kansas City offense. 1.5 touchdown passes for Patrick Mahomes. I like the higher, Joshy.
I don't love it.
Why not?
Low total game. They're 8-point favorites. Kareem Hunt has seemingly scored a touchdown every single time he's played after Isaiah Pacheco. KC just isn't all that interested in putting up points. They want to grind you down, get out of there with a win, move on undefeated, have everyone say, oh, they're not that good, and then the playoffs are going to happen. I think you're trying to cut a thin margin there. DeAndre Hopkins might be the reinvention they need, but he's still, I think he's on the wrong end of 30 and,
yes, that's correct.
And athleticism. So I think that one's riskier than you would initially think it to be at this point.
So Kareem Hunt, I do like the higher on half a rushing or receiving touchdown. So that'll be my Chiefs pick.
The other one I really like for him, and I don't know if they have it up here, I didn't pull it up, is his amount of rushes. They're just giving him the ball nonstop.
18.5.
Yeah.
For rushing attempts. I that's a high number, so I'm not going to pick the higher there.
Number.
But I do like the touchdown prop, which is higher than half of a rush or receiving touchdown for Kareem Hunt. So let's make that our Chiefs pick. I want to look across a couple of games in that noon slate, though, because a couple of them caught my eye. Buffalo at Indianapolis, right? So, like, Josh Allen pops to mind. They're really thin at wide receiver. Keon Coleman is out this weekend. And it sounds like Amari Cooper might not go for Buffalo. So
he at least has a cast on his that he'll be using on his hand/wrist.
Well, I don't love that. So Khalil Shakir seems like a lock for higher than 65.5 receiving yards because Shakir could do that in 2 catches.
Do we like the yardage more than we like the receptions total?
5.5, yeah, I do. I like the yardage better.
Let's look at his recent history here. So he's got 7 targets, 6 receptions, 10 targets, 9 receptions, 7 targets, 7 receptions, and yardage of 50, 107, 65.
So he's gone over 5.5 receptions, higher than 5.5 receptions every week for the last 4 weeks.
Yes, 3 weeks.
And lower on the yardage every time?
2 out of the 3.
I still like the higher on the yardage, though.
Make a call.
Well, yeah.
Give a take.
I have a take. I already gave it to you, and now you're trying to talk me out of it.
I was just saying I think he's going to be super focused in the offense even more than he has been. I mean, Keon Coleman also missing is more of a tactical disadvantage than it is like I don't know how much of a boost Khalil Shakir is going to get in terms of actual targets. So like it's I was just comparing the two, but he gets a lot of attention.
We're going to be all right, Joshy. We're going to be all right. Kareem Hunt, higher than half of a rushing or receiving touchdown. Khalil Shakir, higher than 65.5 receiving yards. Kirk Cousins is playing the Saints. I like him for higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns. No argument from you there.
It's hard to make any argument against any offensive player that's facing the Saints right now.
Correct. And that's why I like that one. Bears-Eagles feels gross, but Ramondre Stevenson's going to get in the end zone for the 3rd straight week.
I don't have a Ramondre Stevenson take. I apologize.
It's okay. $10 can win you up to 114 if all 4 are correct. Or if you go the flex play, which I'm going to do because I just need to see one go through the hoop after last night. I just need to see one go through the hoop. 4 correct, $68. 3 correct, $18.30 on $10.
Those flexes will really save a day for you.
You sure will. Just to recap, Kareem Hunt higher than half of a rusher receiving touchdown. Khalil Shakir higher than 65.5 receiving yards. Kirk Cousins higher, 1.5 passing touchdowns. And Ramondre Stevenson higher than half of a rusher receiving touchdown. $10 can win you up to 114, or if you flex it, up to 68.80, which is what I am doing on Underdog and UnderdogFantasy.com using promo code GoodKarma at sign up. B Rambo 09 chimes in on the ESPN Milwaukee YouTube channel. I didn't think you would look like Daniel Radcliffe with that voice. Yeah, I do get a lot of Harry Potter comparisons. I've never been Harry Potter for Halloween. I feel like that's a wasted opportunity for me.
I got nothing on that.
Real quick question from Pablo here.
Yes.
What Hogwarts house do you think you are?
This is unfortunately the point where I have to make the admission I've never seen Harry Potter.
Holy cow.
Dude.
Slytherin.
Come on.
That's one, right?
No,
That's one, right?
He's not.
No.
I heard Pablo say no, he's not. Pablo, you tell me. What am I?
You're not. Slytherin definitely has like that vicious element to it.
Okay.
No, we're not gonna cop out and say you're a Gryffindor. Everybody believes they're a Gryffindor.
He's a Hufflepuff.
I don't think so.
What's a Hufflepuff?
No.
Hufflepuff sounds cool.
Smart enough to be Ravenclaw.
Do you feel like you're a rule follower?
No.
No.
Yeah, you're not a Hufflepuff then. You're not a rule follower.
I'm a Gryffindor. I'm a Gryffindor.
You know what? I think, I feel like Gryffindor actually does fit.
It's kind of bold.
Well, in this...
You break
in
the
this,
rules like Harry did.
conversation-
So there you go. That's basically what every single book is. Harry breaks the rules. That's what this is.
Oh, good for him.
So yeah.
No wonder he's a legendary wizard. You're a wizard, Harry. I do know that line. Hey, I didn't ask Doug Gottlieb, the new head men's basketball coach at Green Bay, which house he's in during this conversation on ESPN Wisconsin Coaches Week. But you can ponder as you listen to my conversation with Doug Gottlieb, new head coach at Green Bay, on ESPN Wisconsin Coaches Week right here on Mr. Relevant. ESPN Wisconsin's Coaches Week rolls on with a first-time, first-year head coach up in my hometown. Bay Phoenix flying to the Horizon League action under new head coach Doug Gottlieb is my guest now on ESPN Wisconsin Coaches Week. Dougie, how's the first 6 months been, man? I asked you this a couple months ago when we caught up. Have you been sleeping? I'm worried about you.
Yeah, I sleep, but a lot of my sleep I'm putting off for when I'm dead. Then I will sleep really, really well. Take a big dirt nap, and I'm hoping 45 years or so. So
Yeah.
no, I've been sleeping. Fall has really helped. Got the little bit of wind whipping off of the bay. That helps me get to sleep every night. It's like my own personal white noise machine.
There you go. Yeah, the personal white noise machine of the tundra. Welcome to the tundra has been your catchphrase. Is that based on the Guns N' Roses Welcome to the Jungle? Is that where you get that from?
Yeah, plus it's like the frozen tundra, right? Like Lambeau Field, the frozen tundra, NFL films, right? One of those deep, gravelly voices, like that would be super cool. So, yeah, we have a couple. We have Welcome to the Tundra. Our team motto is Walk the Walk. We get into that. We only recruit OKGs. So, just little phrases that we like to use that help us lock us in on what our stated goals are for the type of people and culture we want to build.
OKGs. Okay, guys?
Our kind of guys.
Our kind of guys. Got it. Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Well, let's dive into the last 6 months.
The easy test is this. Like, if you can't hang out with our coaches, with our players, and like feel like we've been friends for a long time, then you're not an OKG. That's it. Really, really simple test. We're usually about, you're about the same things. You're a good hang. Like that's honestly a super important part of building culture within a program. Because if you don't want to be around people, this ain't gonna work.
Mm-hmm.
It's too small a town, too many hours together. It's too cold outside. If we don't want to be around you, if you don't want to be around us, then this ain't gonna work. OKG's.
I love it. OKGs only up in Green Bay. So bring me into the last 6 months, Doug. I mean, obviously this came together late. You were hired in May. You were introduced in May. You had to hit the ground running fast, building a staff, recruiting guys, whether that be through the portal, whether that be, high school seniors for the upcoming years. How has everything come together for this rendition of the Phoenix, the 24-25 team?
Pretty good. We had a secret scrimmage, thought we played well. For the most part, had some things to clean up. Obviously, we shot the ball really well against St. Norbert in our exhibition game, and we're healthy-ish, sort of, going into the season. And I think all of our guys are confident. We're, as a staff, pretty hopeful. We know, by and large, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are. And I came to our practice right now, you're like, man, they all like each other. And they seem to like us. Now, they probably like us a little bit less once we start playing games, just because I can only play 5. And we got 18 dudes on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
I'm realistic about that, but respect us and respect how hard we work. And they like each other. They're a good group. So how's it all come together? In terms of wins, I'm not in the prediction game, but I like my group. I like what we're building. And I think if everybody's understandable about how we put this together late and how it's going to grow and where we want to be once February, March comes around, I think that's what's really important.
You've obviously coached before, and that's something I think you don't love when people say, "Well, you've never coached before," because you have, right? You've never coached a Division I program.
I don't hate it. I don't care. I think that people who don't know basketball and it's really hard for them to connect in their brain. Like, what you haven't coached in a college basketball program, how can you coach college basketball? Like, it's actually understandable. But I think basketball people would go like, oh, okay, well, like, he's covered the game forever. His dad was a coach. His brother's a coach. He coached AU. He coaches other stuff. Like, yeah, it kind of actually makes a whole hell of a lot more sense. It's not like I was an accountant.
Right.
and I was like, hey, I had a midlife crisis and I bought a Porsche and drove to Green Bay and got a job. Right. Like, that's not what this is.
Right point.
So anyway, I'm not pushing back on it. Like, I don't care, but I just think I honestly, when we had our scrimmage, I think the other coach was a little bothered by the fact that we were probably a little bit further along than his group. And like, I was coaching 14-year-olds in AAU up until the day that Josh Moon called me. And, how is that possible? So and also here's the other part. I don't do all the coaching, right? Like, just so people are aware, head coaches don't do all the coaching. They just don't. If they do all the coaching, that means they don't trust their staff. That means they're terrible to work for. And that means it's probably a flawed way, in my opinion, it's a flawed way to have a program because you're not allowing your systems to grow. So yeah, I don't know everything. And there's a lot I don't know. And I'm learning as I go. But I like it. It's I give quotes to these guys every day. And one of the ones we circle back on all the time is walk quietly and carry a big stick. Teddy Roosevelt, right? Mm-hmm. Is, hey, end of the day, it ain't about me. It's about the players, and they got to be in the right. And my job is to put them in the best position to succeed. But the same is true for my coaches. So I don't do all the coaching. I don't know everything. But yeah, I've coached a little bit more than the layperson might think.
Alex Strouf, Green Bay coach, Doug Gottlieb with you, ESPN Wisconsin Coaches Week. So I set that up because I'm curious, as you enter your first year as the head coach of the Phoenix, are you a bulletin board material guy? Do you see that the Phoenix are picked 8th in the Horizon League? Are you putting that up? Are you using that as motivation? Are you a bulletin board material guy?
No.
Okay.
No bulletin board material has ever won or lost a game. And if you need to, and I actually, like, I don't even know how you would do it. How you would, like, Ken Palm had us like in the 300s. Like, that's great. How would you know, Ken? How would he have any idea? Right? How would he have any clue? He doesn't, and by the way, the guy who's going to lead us in scoring played NAIA basketball last year. Now, basketball people be like, oh, he's a bucket. He's pretty good, but you have no sense of how we play, what we're going to do, who our players are, so I don't, how could I care? I would probably pick us dead last because, again, you have a lot of players who haven't played Division I basketball. They haven't necessarily had a ton of success. You have a coach who's never coached a game of college basketball ever before. And you're at a place that, though they were fairly successful last year, the year before, they were the worst team in Division I. So it's not like there's been some long history of success and we have dudes and I'm just showing up and rolling the ball out and hoping they do well. So, like, who am I to say, like, if you're doubtful, it's completely understandable to think we're going to stink. And that's great. That's fine. That's why the expression is walk the walk. There's nothing I can say, Alex, to you or to anybody that's going to convince you, because you have to see it for yourself. So we don't need to talk the talk. We just need to walk the walk, show people. And then hopefully they come to the games and they show up the next time and then they bring a friend and then the next time and the next time. And then guys like you are like, these guys might know what they're doing, or maybe we don't. But no, I don't. What's the bulletin board to? Who cares? I don't.
I guess I asked that because, you're in a national spotlight still every day.
Sure.
I think it's hard for you to ignore the outside noise. Not saying you take it in and acknowledge it, but more so you're around it, right? It surrounds you. You see that you're eighth in the poll or whatever it is, because given your other line of work, right, you're still hosting a national radio show. You're hearing that outside noise more, and I think that's interesting when I'm talking to guys like Shaka Smart and Greg Gard, and they're like, "Yeah, we ignore the outside noise." You're kind of in it, so I just think it's a unique spot for you as the head coach of the program.
I love the outside noise. I do. If you're talking about Green Bay basketball, like, isn't that a win?
Totally a win.
It's totally a win. Like, who in their right mind has talked about Green Bay basketball in the last since Norgard? And like, look, when I was at ESPN and Wardle was up here, and they were really good.
Kiefer Sykes, Alec Brown teams, right?
Dude, those are good teams, right? And I remember, I thought they should have gotten in, and obviously, you get an injury in a conference finals and you lose, and it's really hard. Okay, but I was the only guy then talking about GB basketball, and since even covering the sport, I hadn't really uttered the words Green Bay basketball. So they're talking about is great. Now, we don't want to show up and be a clown show, right? We don't want to be the laughing stock of college basketball. And I'm also not I don't want you to talk about us just because, it's not that I don't like the ancillary Dion stuff, the Shedeur Sanders watch thing, and that's not me. But yeah, I like outside noise is great. And no, I'm not ignoring it. Don't get me wrong. Like, I have Twitter. I can read the mentions. I got it. That's fuel. That's it. Doubt is to use that as fuel. And the other part is I'm kind of more built for it than a lot of other people, because being in the media and being somebody who's been strongly opinionated, I've been called everything, like literally everything. And if you follow I had an assistant coach who is at one of the most prestigious schools in the country, texted me last night, and he's like, "I don't know how you do it," just randomly. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, I don't know how you actually ever tweet, because I'm reading I'm reading the comments, and it's crazy. And I was like, doesn't bother me. Doesn't bother me.
That's good. I mean, you got to be wired that way too. You keep mentioning the secret scrimmage. Nobody's going to hear this until the college basketball season already tips off. Spill the beans. Who is it against?
Northern Illinois.
Okay. And you liked what your guys did?
Yeah.
What's,
so we
what's
scored. What's the big what?
What's the big takeaway when you have a quote unquote secret scrimmage? I mean, you get to see live action. You're seeing live bullets against another team that's not your own, right? What's the big takeaway for you?
Oh, there's a million of them. What we were really concerned with our defense, and I spent most of the summer in our workouts working on offense. We did either 3-to-1 or a 2-to-2 in terms of, we would do 4 workouts a week. Sometimes we do 3, and with a focal point of being offense on a 3-to-1 ratio, just because it's summer, you can't beat them up. And how we play offensively, I think guys really like, and it's going to be it's a calling card of how we play. And then it has to be congruent with how we play defensively. But our guys really struggle to guard our own stuff. And, every time we scrimmage with our first group, if we do a 20-minute half, they're scoring, 50, 60 and a half. And so we walked into it like, can we guard anybody? Now, we struggled to guard them inside, which we knew would happen. But we scored 103 points, and then we played an exhibition game. We scored 102 points. And when I was on about a week before the scrimmage, I called Mike Boynton, who was the coach at Oklahoma State last year, who I was a consultant with. And I said, I don't know if we can guard anybody, but I don't know if it's my offense or if it's my defense. And he's like, yeah, like use the scrimmage for that. And the other part I've done is we have enough guys. We have a scout team. And so we started putting the scout team in some of the actions, some of the styles of who we're going to play against. And it became obvious to us that we're a little bit better defensive than we thought. And we have a little bit better offense. And so And a lot of it is how we play offensively. So the big takeaway is the stuff works. It gives them a ton of freedom, but they have to be in great shape to play that way. They have to be disciplined in there's a lot of good shots, but maybe one more pass is a great shot, and have to be disciplined in the cuts because, cutting is an incredibly unselfish move because it doesn't just cut you through the defense. It takes your man through the defense. So offensively, we loved it. And then we knew that how we play, especially against high majors, but if you have a 5 that can't move, you're not gonna be able to guard us. You got no shot. And so many teams are playing the 5 in the drop. Like that's just not going to work against what we're doing. So that was that. And then defensively, we were a lot better in the half court than we thought. On the other hand, we really had to ratchet up our rebounding and then just our toughness without fouling into low exposed against St. Norbert as well. But we'll trade 3 for 2 anytime you want. And if you want to play big and try and play bully ball, we're going to do our best to rebound that second shot because you're going to miss. And then you're going to have to guard us. And so our takeaways were we're a little better defensive than we thought. We need to get better on the interior, and that's going to be exposed here, especially against the high majors. And then offensively, I got a lot of faith in what we're doing. And, some of our young guys had to get pushed around. Northern Illinois is really athletic, and they were kind of tough-minded. They battled back to get in the game. But about everything we thought otherwise kind of played out.
Love it. So your season tips off Monday, and you're tipping off your first regular season game as a Division I head coach. Is that your alma mater, Oklahoma State? That's pretty special, Doug.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. I tell people all the time, and I mean it. My life trajectory changed right when if you've never been to Stillwater, it's 17 miles off of the interstate. You take I-35 north from Oklahoma City, or you come in on the toll road from Tulsa, and it's 17 miles from I-35, and that's on Highway 51. And Highway 51, my life changed. And I think there'll always be people who, for example, this game, they want to make it about, I was up for the job once and I didn't get the job this time, or whatever. That's not what it's about. First, I have a daughter who goes to school there. My other daughter's going to go in the winter. And then my son is in high school about 40 miles down the road. So a good portion of it is I just want to see my kids and love to have them see me coach. But the other element to it is I love Oklahoma State, and those people, there's a gigantic portion of their fan base that has wanted me to be the head coach there for maybe the last decade.
Right.
And this is just a thank you to them. Like, that's really what it's about. Like, hey, you guys all wanted this. I'm starting the process, and I truly appreciate it. And I also want to show my team what big time basketball is like, what I'm about, how people think about me, what kind of built me, and what made me the person that I am. So that's, I truly wake up with gratitude on a daily basis that I got this opportunity. And I want to share that gratitude with people who mean the most to me. And those are people, Oklahoma State, who've treated me so well. I mean, like, dude, I was a good college basketball player. I know my strengths, weaknesses, and where I truly ranked in the world. But I've received way more than I deserve from Oklahoma State. I'm on the board of governors there. I've emceed events. I'm in different different Hall of Fame groups and stuff. I was an above average student, nothing special. But the fact is that they wrapped their arms around me, and they've helped me in so many different ways. And this is my way of kind of sort of giving back and showing what I'm up to.
That's awesome, Doug. I mean, it's a really unique opportunity, right? Not a lot of head coaches get that opportunity. So that is fantastic. I saw you got to spend some time recently with Dick Bennett, who means a lot to me because I went to UW-Stevens Point. So obviously he was the head coach there and has the court named after him there. Obviously he was at Green Bay for 10 or 11 seasons, brought him to an NCAA tournament in 91. What was that like, spending some time with Dick Bennett, and how's the relationship there with who you refer to as the GOAT of Green Bay?
Well, there's no question he's the greatest. One of his former players said he was Bob Knight without the cursing. And by Bob Knight, he was hard to play for, but also what people forget about Bob Knight is he's one of the greatest coaches ever. Like my dad went to school with Coach Knight. My dad was a walk-on at Ohio State when Coach Knight was there, and he was like he's like one of the greatest clinicians ever. And he, we've talked on the phone several times. We've exchanged messages. And then he came down and we spent some time together. Then we had the event. Then he came to practice the next day, sat in our coaches meetings. He gave us some of the building blocks of success that he believes in. And then he talked to the team. I mean, it was incredible. It was literally incredible. And I just wanted to soak up every word. And, there's 18 kids. He's not going to resonate with all of them. But if he resonates with a couple, that's enough for us. So the relationship's been great. Obviously our families have known each other for a long time. I don't know if you know this, but I played against Wisconsin in an exhibition game. And he did that as a solid to my dad. And then Tony actually scrimmaged with us the night before in the practice gym. We were getting ready for the game. And then when Tony was at Wazoo, my dad coached Clay Thompson in AAU, as well as Taylor Rochesty. Those are the two players that helped turn around that program. So my dad helped him go there. Like Clay had no Pac-12 offers. So there's a lot of ties that bind there. And it was just great to catch up. And he gave us some incredible advice that we're used every day in what we're doing.
I love it, Doug. Last thing for you is obviously the marathon really began a couple of weeks ago, but the marathon really begins this upcoming week as you tip off the college basketball season, as mentioned on Monday at Oklahoma State. How are you feeling? Just overall, right? Like entering your first season, there's got to be some nerves. There's got to be some butterflies. Where are you at as the marathon really begins this week?
I'm excited. Right? Imagine when you're a kid and, whatever you wanted to be as a kid. Okay. Whatever it was, you want to be a fireman. You want to be an astronaut. You want to play for the Green Bay Packers. You want to play for the Brewers. You want to play for the Bucks. Okay. Whatever it was you actually dreamed of. When I was 13 years old, I went to the Long Beach Arena and I saw Loyola Marymount the first game after Hank Gathers had passed. And I knew the Long Beach Arena really well because my dad was an assistant coach at Long Beach State, and that's where they played. So I remember going there, and I knew a lot of guys in that LMU team. And when they walked in, the whole place was adorned with 44s, which was Hank Gathers' number. And I watched Bo Kimball take 3 dribbles with his right hand, switch, and shoot with his left hand and make it. And there wasn't a dry eye in the place, and people were holding up 44s. And I remember that was the moment where I said, this is what I want to do. And when I was a freshman in high school, my dad had me write down what I wanted to achieve in basketball. And then he said, all right, turn the page and now let's write down how we're going to get there. And I never wrote down what I wanted to do in coaching. I just knew that when I went to college, I wanted to do 3 things. I wanted to play professionally, done that. I wanted to broadcast, I've done that. But I always, always, always wanted to coach. So imagine if you're a 13-year-old kid. Imagine if you're a 13-year-old kid and you had a dream, and all of a sudden, Monday night, that dream is going to come true. And so, yeah, I'm processing those emotions. But there's no nerves about it because I honestly, I think coaching my own son in AAU is harder just because you're like, okay, I don't want to do this and not play my kid, and I want to win, but I got to play everybody. And I want to see if I can play my son, but also hold him accountable. Like all of those things I feel like are harder than kids that, though I love them and all of them I want here, like, it's not my own kid, so I don't have to worry about those lasting kind of emotions. I would say there's a tinge of nerves. There's a whole lot of excitement. There's a good portion of gratitude and joy, and then there's just the energy of I can't believe how blessed I am at 48 years old to get a chance to kind of restart and thing I've always wanted to do at a place that just wants to succeed in all of the right ways.
When I covered that team in the early 2010s, and we referenced those teams, right? Kiefer Sykes, Alec Brown, Greg Mays, Alfonso McKinney, Brian Wardle, the head coach. There was an unbelievable fan base and contingency of fans in the Resch Center. That faded away over years. I think Doug Gottlieb, you and your staff have a really neat opportunity here to bring back that hunger, and you've already seen some of that this offseason. It all gets started on Monday. Doug Gottlieb, the new coach at Green Bay. Bro, this was great. I'm rooting for you. We'll do it again soon. We'll check in, in a couple months. But we're going to let you get your feet under you and get running here.
Get in a car and get your ass up to the Resch. Okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Get in a car and get your butt up here, and I'll buy you a steak dinner afterwards. Right?
All right.
And then if you walk away going, that guy doesn't know what he's doing, that's fair. You can get on WTMJ and say he doesn't know what he's doing. But I think you walk away and you go like, they kind of got something special going on up there. That's what we want. And then the next time you got to bring a friend with you, and then bring another, and then have him bring a friend, and then have him bring a friend. That's the goal.
That's the goal. I love that. Doug Gottlieb, really appreciate the time, bro. This is great.
Anytime.
Doug Gottlieb, the new head coach at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. 0-1 start, falling to his alma mater, Oklahoma State, on Monday. But looking to get things back on track there in the Horizon League. Get your ass up to Green Bay, and I'll buy you a steak dinner. Everybody heard that, right? Hunter, you heard that?
I did. You're pals with Doug Gottlieb.
I got to take him up on that, right?
Oh, yeah,
well, I got to take him up on that. Yeah, so I got to go get a steak dinner with Doug Gottlieb after watching the Phoenix. But I am intrigued by them because, college basketball junkie, as we've discussed a lot this week. I'm intrigued by that hire still. He's impressive, though. He knows ball. So we will see how that works out in year one for Doug Gottlieb and the Phoenix. But that does it for ESPN Wisconsin's Coaches Week. We didn't air, the Bart Lundy interview on Mr. Relevant. You can find it in the Mr. Relevant podcast feed. You can find it on YouTube at ESPN Milwaukee. Bart Lundy, the head coach at Milwaukee. So you can check that interview at YouTube, the Mr. Relevant podcast feed. Really fun conversation with him, dude. He's freaking hilarious. So you got to check that one out if you've heard Shaka Smart, Greg Garden, Doug Gottlieb this week. All right, time now for What We Learned. You learn something new every day. I learned something new today, and we are running very late, so we'll make this quick. I'm going to figure out how to get rich. I haven't learned how I'm going to get rich, but I saw something that happened this week. Pizza.com sold for like $3 billion. May have been $3 million. Regardless, it was a lot of money. It was a boatload of money. So, Hunter, Joshy, I think we should just start scooping up big domain names and sell them for millions of dollars.
You're about 25 years late to that.
Yeah, so fun fact for you. My favorite teacher ever, Mr. Wetzel. Terry, who I call. I got a beer with him last year. Great dude. Terry, his last name is Wetzel. So he owned Wetzels.com, and he sold it. He never told us how much, but one of his success stories was he sold Wetzels.com to Wetzel's Pretzels. But he was completely within his legal rights because his last name is Wetzel. How fun is that?
Yeah, I would imagine that was upwards of six figures.
I would guess so as well.
Yeah.
So good for him. Good for him.
Yeah, it's an industry that you might want to find another one.
Like a different industry?
Yeah, if you're going to get rich.
Did you see this Pizza.com news, though? It just happened.
No, and I'm surprised something like that would be that worth that much.
Right.
Because it is just who's typing in Pizza.com.
I don't know. I went there today, and it's just like a search engine.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, we're way late, so we got to cut it. We're back with you Monday, reacting to the football weekend. We'll preview Packers Bears, which is looking like a big game coming up next week in Chicago. We will dive into that coming up next week as the Packers season rolls on. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Double bye for the Wisconsin football teams. No Badgers, no Packers this weekend, so should be a fun one. Watching everybody else and getting some things. I'm going mini golfing, mini golf bar crawl on Sunday. How fun is that? Getting after it pretty good.
You would.
Yeah.
That's so annoying.
You're annoying.
So annoying.
You're annoying.
You're the people when I go to the bar, I'm like, ugh. I can't hang out here. They're going to be in all day.
We'll talk to you Monday beginning at 12:30 Central. ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Josh will not be here on Monday because I hate him. It's Mr. Irrelevant. I'm Alex Strouf. We'll talk to you Monday. Have a great weekend. Peace.